Hello guys, Belle here. This is another edition of the class spell and talents video. This video I'm going to be focused on arcane mages. This is going to be quite fun for me because I have not seen arcane in quite a bit of time, probably 2 expansions before I actually looked at an arcane mage. So let's talk a little bit about the changes regarding mages in general. So if you guys watched the Frost and Fire Mage, quite a bit of talent change up there in regards to the way the mage's game style play is happening. This is thanks to ability pruning and such like that. Now with the arcane mage, this was pretty viable in PvE. Although frost damage and fire damage I think was the preferred over the last probably year or so. Several of you have been trying to make the arcane mage dream happen. We'll see what happens come Legion, but it definitely wasn't something that was the norm for a PvP situation. Similar to me remaining destruction when everyone told me not to. So let's talk a little bit about some of your core abilities as an arcane mage. Obviously, you're going to utilize Arcane Blast, Arcane Missiles, Arcane Barrage, Evocation, and your mastery here is going to be Savant. So with Savant, this is going to increase your mana regeneration rate at a maximum rate by about 20%. Now this is open for change as this is still alpha, so a lot of stuff in this video might be rendered obsolete as future builds do go out. So let's talk a little bit about, there's a lot of arcane specific talents here that have been introduced. So with arcane, obviously you're going to be dealing with, these are the most of your abilities here. That's going to be the core of your rotation in any kind of setting would be my assumption here. So let's talk a little bit about your talents. So here's your spells real quick. We can just go over those so that you can see what is here. Most of you will recognize a lot of this stuff as some of your core spells are still here. You might have found some spells that have returned. This is of course in relation to the arcane mages staff that they do use. So that's what is going on there. Now let's talk a little bit about talents here. So in regards to your talents, you're going to see that there's quite a bit of change up as far as the way that the talents look, because they did it as they did with all the classes. They did take a lot of your talents or a lot of your spells that might have been inherent to your class and are forcing you to kind of pick between. There's a large use of passive abilities here in your talent tree, which is something that we didn't really see in this last expansion, but looks like that's the direction that they're moving towards. Maybe sometimes those passive abilities might be able to serve you better depending upon the situation. Now let's talk about your first set. So you do have Arcane Familiar. This is a 1-minute cooldown. You can summon a familiar that attacks your enemies and increases your maximum mana by 10%. This effect does last an hour. With it having a 1-minute cooldown, that's pretty cool. Definitely you can see some uses for that, of course. Presence of Mind, which is in that same tree, this is an instant ability. It also is a 1-minute cooldown. It does cost your next 2 Arcane Blasts to be an instant cast. This could be something that could be super important to you since it is a 2.09 second cast as your base setup. This is, of course, with the combatants PvP gear that the level 110s do start on in alpha. So depending upon the situation, I know as a destruction warlock, I do like things that make my chaos bolt, even if it's just a few millisecond difference in casting, because that can make or break whether you live or die, whether it's PvP and trying to kill that damn rogue, or if it's PvE and you're trying to get a last little bit of DPS out for that boss if several of your raid team is down and you're pretty much the last man standing. So with that presence of mind, I think that that's obviously going to be pretty useful as far as a burst situation. So definitely want to keep that in mind if you plan on dabbling in the arcane arts. Torrent, which is a passive ability, the Arcane Barrage does deal 25% increased damage per target it hits. I gotta tell you that this seems like it's going to be a little bit OP as far as throwing that into your rotation, since it's a passive ability and just does it on its own, will definitely make things easier. Now this whole set, this is inherent to all mages. So all mages are going to choose between their Shimmer, the Cauterize, and the Cold Snap. This is going to be a personal preference, of course, and specifically to your style of gameplay. With your Shimmer, it does replace your Blink, is not affected by any of the global cooldowns. It's pretty legit if you ask me. I like the shimmer as opposed to the blink. I can't really tell you why. It seemed to be quite enjoyable when I was using it earlier when I was doing the frost video. Now for the cauterize, fatal damage instead brings you to 35% health and then burns you for 28% of your maximum health over 6 seconds. Now while burning, movement slowing effects are suppressed and your movement speed is increased by 150%. This effect cannot occur more than once every 2 minutes, so you're not looking at multiple instances in a 2-minute period, but still pretty powerful nonetheless as far as the survivability aspect is concerned. With that, you're not new to Cold Snap. Cold Snap just is what it is. The Ice Block now has 2 charges and also heals you for 3% of your maximum health every second. Cold Snap is probably going to be the go-to when it comes to PvP, just because it gives you 2 charges of an Ice Block, which sometimes can make or break the outcome of an arena and or RBG match. Your mirror image, that's just what mages do. It's really annoying if you're fighting a mage and you're trying to deal with the 3 copies of themselves. They do cast spells, they do attack enemies. It does last 40 seconds and still is in the same 2-minute cooldown. The Rune of Power places a Rune of Power at the ground for 10 seconds, which increases your spell damage by 50% when you're standing within 8 yards. Now this is a relatively slow cast time in comparison with some other abilities, and it does have a 45-second charge. So with that, I'm thinking this is going to be pretty powerful in part of a rotation when you're trying to maximize your damage output as quickly as possible. This can be in an arena situation if you're choosing to opt to go arcane for PvP, and thusly in a dungeon scenario or even soloing to help DPS down a lot quicker. Incanter's Flow, this is a passive ability. Magical energy flows through you while in combat, building up to 20% increased damage and then diminishing down to 4% increased damage. The cycle is about every 10 seconds. With this being a passive ability, it does make things easier as far as less things to click and less things to remember during a rotation, but that's pretty much going to be up to you and how you feel you want to utilize that. The Rune of Power would be my assumption this would be the go-to. Keep in mind, guys, I don't mage, so these are just assumptions based off what these abilities do. For the next set, you're looking at the Supernova. This is an instant cast, 25-second cooldown, pulses arcane energy around the target enemy or ally, dealing a lot of arcane damage actually to all enemies within 8 yards. Knocking them upward, a primary enemy target will take 100% increased damage. So let's just look at this for a second. I wanted to take the second to look at this because right now it's saying dealing 40k damage to all enemies. Now this is not 40k split damage, and this is just based off my base stats here. I don't have anything fancy outside of my weapon, which is the legendary. Sorry, I struggled on my words there, guys. The artifact weapon. So I don't have anything, no additional, nothing. I don't have anything glyphed, spec'd, or anything added to that as far as enchantments go. This is just your base combatants gear. Even this isn't even the great PvP gear or even raiding gear per se. So at that base damage, that 40k is pretty freaking powerful because it's spread amongst all enemies. This is going to be super useful when it comes to, I can see this being used in a team fight in RBGs, along with some other talents that you can acquire through the honor leveling process in PvP. But then you also have raiding. I think this would be super useful on DPSing down certain mobs as well as multi-add boss fights. So I think that that's something to take into consideration, especially since the primary target gets 100% increased damage. So you're looking at a lot of damage pretty quickly. And because it has a 25-second cooldown in a boss fight, that's easy peasy as far as I'm concerned. However, you do also have charged up. This is an instant cast as well, 30-second cooldown. This gives you 4 arcane charges. Boy, do they make you choose between some of the heavy hitters here. I feel like that would be equally as useful, but I also see that there could be situations where you could swap that out at the drop of a hat and possibly test the damage output that happens. Now, Words of Power, this is a passive ability. This grants 1% increased chance to trigger arcane missiles per 20% of your mana you have unspent. I'm going to be perfectly honest, this confuses me a little because I don't utilize this kind of stuff since I don't mage, but I do understand what it's saying. So with this being a passive ability, might be something to consider, but I'm thinking it's going to be between your charged up and Supernova for that tier. For your ice flows, you know what that is. It is a 20-second recharge. This is an instant cast ability. It does make your mage spells castable while moving. Now, one of the things that I do love about mages anyway is they're super powerful, but like warlocks, they're super locked down with their abilities. So not a whole lot of movement going there with a turret caster such as that. This is really, really great. It's unaffected by a global cooldown. It has 3 charges. This is great, except it's only 1 mage spell castable while moving. I don't really see when this is going to be useful because it's not like a second timer, so it's not giving you like, say, 20 seconds of castable abilities while moving type of situation. I think in this situation, you would probably opt for the Ring of Frost, which is a 45-second cooldown, but with this Ring of Frost, it's 10 seconds at the target location. Enemies entering the ring are incapacitated. I don't think this is going to be so much useful on a PvE standpoint, maybe certain mobs that can be slowed, but I do know that this is going to be integral when you're doing PvP, because I see a lot of other spec mages using this ability, such as your Frost and your Fire mages, which are kind of the go-to for PvP. Now, the Ice Ward, your Frost Nova has 2 charges. I don't imagine that this is going to be something, you might use this if you're in doing, oops, that was an accident. You might, sorry guys, you might use this if you're doing a situation, let me put that on my bar, where you need it in PvP. Coming from the difference between the two, I think this is just going to be personal preference and situational use. Now, the Nether Tempest, this is an instant cast. Place another Tempest at the target, which deals arcane damage over 12 seconds to the target and an additional within all enemies. Now, it says limit 1 target damage increase 60% per arcane charge. I think that this could be something that would be useful for you, although I don't know how often you would want to use it or the reasons you would use it, since the damage isn't so much. Now, with the Unstable Magic, this is a passive ability. Your Arcane Blast has a 15% chance to explode on impact, dealing 50% additional damage to the target and all other enemies with 8 yards. So here you have the Nether Tempest, which is pretty much a guaranteed damage, except the damage is pretty low. And then you have the Unstable Magic, which has the opportunity to give you an additional 50%, which is huge, except you're dealing with a 15% chance here. So this is going to be one of those. You just have to pick and choose the lesser of 2 evils and what's accommodating to your specific play style. Now, for Erosion, your attacks erode the target's resistance, increasing all damage the target takes from your spells by 1%. This can stack up to 8 times. After 3 seconds of not taking any damage from your spells, this effect decreases by 1% every 1 second. So Erosion seems like as a passive ability, it would be a lot more stable. Notice what I did there, stable, unstable, giggity. This might be something that might be preferable on that aspect. I think it's just going to be according to how you feel about it. Now, for your last set, we do have Overpowered, which is casting Arcane Missiles, extends Arcane Power by 2 seconds. Quickening, Arcane Blast, Arcane Missiles, and Arcane Explosion also grant 2% haste for 6 seconds, stacking up to 100 times. This effect is cleared when you cast Arcane Barrage. And then you have your Arcane Orb. This launches an Arcane Orb forward from your position, traveling up to 40 yards, dealing a certain amount of arcane damage to enemies it passes through. Now, the important thing to note is this also grants arcane charges when cast every time the damage is dealt. I do apologize if you guys heard my dog barking. I have a husky and she's 6 months old and does not respect my recording boundaries. If you did hear that, I do apologize. Not sure if the audio actually picked that up. So let's talk about this last set. I did go through rather quickly. The reason I went through rather quickly is because I wanted to talk about your uses for this last set. Since some of these the last set should always be the best, in my opinion. This should be your big bad boy of all your choices. Similar to in Warlords of Draenor, you did have a really, really big choice that you had to make in most classes. So with your Arcane Orb, this is an instant ability. It does do a relatively good amount of damage, does grant a charge when it does deal damage when it's casted. Your Quickening, this seems to me because it does a variety of spells. So your Arcane Blast, your Arcane Missiles, and your Arcane Explosion also grant 2% haste for 6 seconds. That haste could be super crucial in part of your rotation, and it can stack up to 100 times. To me, I would think the Quickening, especially with this being the basis for a lot of Arcane's damage, is that Quickening in the background. I would think that this would probably be the go-to. but just keep in mind that the effect is cleared when you cast Arcane Barrage. Now for the overpowered, this, once again, these are going to be situational uses here. So this is just going to be according to your play style. So with all this information that we have here, I want you to also keep in mind that if you're a PvPer, I'm going to be doing separate PvP videos for these just because some of the things are very, very different when you're going through your honor system. I know a lot of you are freaked out when it comes to PvP. No need to be, guys. They're changing it. Maybe it's going to be bad. Maybe it's going to be good. Nobody really knows until it actually happens. So some of these talents are really going to be able to separate you from the people that really don't PvP a lot, because you're going to actually have to level up your honor in order to be able to acquire these talents. So that's your look at the Arcane Mage. If you guys would like, I can grab a target dummy right quick, and that's right, I said right quick, guys. Judge me all you like. We can grab a target dummy and we can just kind of see what some of these things we're looking for. I don't Arcane Mage, so I'm just gonna pick a bunch of stuff, and we'll get some nice animations going off. That clearly was supposed to be by the target dummy and not right there. But yeah, here's some of your items. It's looking pretty swanky. I do appreciate the arcane stuff. It's looking pretty legit. So there you guys go. Gave you a little looky-see at what we've got going on here, and nice procs going on there. I dig it. I dig it. I really like the spell animations when it comes to arcane. So I have a mage. Maybe it's time to get her out of the old closet and actually do something with my life. So there you go. That is going to conclude the Arcane Mage video. Make sure you guys have watched all the other videos. I will be covering all specs of all classes for your spell and talent breakdown, as well as doing the artifact acquisition questline for each spec. And we did the class hall videos previously, so you should make sure you check out the YouTube channel. If you watch this video, you're already at the computer, you're already on your phone, why not give the video a like? It deserves it. If you are new to PWNCAST, please make sure you subscribe, and as always, your comments, whether they are negative or positive, are always welcome. Thank you so much for giving me a moment of your time today. I'm going to go get working on some other videos. I hope you enjoyed this Arcane Mage breakdown.